welcome back to the channel. Got another Diamond Select Toys sponsored review for you today, and it's going to be a Minimates day, so double dose of awesome today. We're going to be looking at Wave 2 of the G.I. Joe Minimates. Of course, last time we looked at Wave 1. So you can see immediately the box, very similar until how they're displayed with these little mini card backs for the figures with the little clamshell bubbles. And the box itself kind of looks like a foot locker of sorts. We'll give you a close-up of the box here. Again, you can see through the window, you have all the characters on their card backs. This one is going to be featuring Storm Shadow, Cobra Commander, Baroness, and then Destro. Kind of core characters in the sort of inner circle of leadership. Storm Shadow being that leader of all the little commandos we see, and then obviously Cobra Commander. And then Baroness and Destro, two core characters as well in that inner circle. So it's a nice set to be complementing the original set that we had released here, which also featured, of course, Snake Eyes, which is the G.I. Joe's version of the ninja, and then Scarlet, who does counterintelligence to Baroness's intelligence, and then Heavy Machine Gunner, Roadblock, and then Sergeant Duke, which was kind of like the leader of the G.I. Joes. We didn't see a whole lot of other leadership there. So that is the layout for this one. So why don't we crack into it and check them out. So these are going to open a very similar way to what we saw with the G.I. Joe in the first wave. They're just going to have the panel open on the side here, and then they will all just kind of slide out on this rail. And essentially each individual card back is going to be in place on top of this little rail system here, allowing them to remain in place in the box. And the only regret I have is that you can't reseal these once you open them, which is a little disappointing because the card backs are amazing. They're really featuring that vintage style throwback aesthetic. And you can see here in the packaging, they had that beautiful front with a photo with the character, and of course the weapons and the character laid out in the box. And then on the back, you have that old style scorecard or bio blurb cutout, which we used to have on those cards back in the day. So that's really cool that they kept that. So that is essentially the packaging kind of consistent through all of them. So Storm Shadow, our Cobra Ninja here, we're going to crack into it. And I usually like coming in at a angle here so I could avoid tearing this packaging because I love it and I want to reserve it even if I can't reseal it. As you guys saw with the Joes there, even though those were open, I could still kind of give them a closed look by putting them back on this rack system. So you can still, if you want to, mount it like this and keep it if you wanted to keep the clamshell option as well. So I got that pretty close without scratching this too much here, so I could still reuse it if I wanted to. But we get our Storm Shadow here, and he's got a little piece of tape over the bow to hold that in place. So I'll just move that out. And then we get our character here. And of course, all of them come with stands because these guys, although you can't get them to balance on their own, I think it's just easier to go with the stand here. So we have our Storm Shadow on the stand here. We'll give you a nice close-up. You can check him out all kitted up here with his bow and his arrows and his swords and his knives and everything. Looks pretty sharp. I really like how these have turned out. I mean, even impressive for Minimates. A ton of detail on them. You see all that great notching and layering on their clothing. And of course, the quiver there is a separate piece, so it doesn't, it's not molded into it, so it just makes it look like the character has a little more depth to him. So it's a nice kind of feature to add that on there as well. And we'll see in a second here how functional those components of the system are. So he has the bow and arrows, like I mentioned there. He also has a little knife, and he has a sword. So we'll see how this all kind of fits together in a second. These arrows are a little tricky to get out. They're kind of really taped in there. All right, and they get a little bent. So the arrows, there's a notch here, so I guess you could kind of put one on, and it should hold it in place. Yep, if you got it in the line there. So there's a little notch to hold the arrows in place, and of course you could dump them in the quiver here. If you wanted as well, so those fit in there. And then the sword and the knife, there are two little slots in the back, so if you wanted to just kind of throw them in there in order to give the appearance that he's kind of just like kitted up, you could throw those in the little holes here. The bigger one's a little trickier to get in. I'm sure you can get it in if you get it on an angle. It's just these are a little bit new, so they're kind of stiff. But that's basically how you would kind of display him. and you have options to switch out the weapons. The weapons go in pretty easy here into the slotted hand, so you could kind of equip them any way you wanted to. But that is basically Storm Shadow, and of course he has all the articulation we see in Minimates, where they bend at the knees, bend at the hip, and this one, I think the head turns, you have the body turns, and then they have those elbows, and then the wrist rotate, and then as well as the shoulders. So that's the range of articulation on these guys, and that's kind of consistent throughout. But that is the look at our Storm Shadow with all his great weapons here. Of course, see that crossbow, or that bow was kind of a big part of him in the original release too, back in the 80s. So that is our look at Storm Shadow. We're going to transition over to the next one in the line. I believe it was Cobra Commander. So Cobra Commander, we're going to open him up the same way as we did with Storm Shadow. Just going to take a slice here, try to preserve this card. Really love this card back. I don't want to mess it up. Again, I wish you could just reseal these sort of like they did with the Jumbo figures, just because they did a really great job of bringing these card backs to life with these figures. They were kind of classic and iconic, and they look great. And the releases, we're seeing them now on the shelves from, I believe, Hasbro doing the retro version of the Stormtrooper, or not the Stormtroopers, I'm sorry, the Joes that you could see at, I think it's a Walmart exclusive, that line. But it's great seeing those in the retro card backs re-released. So I don't want to mess this up, but this is really giving me a run for my money there. Okay, got it. Yeah, so we got that great card back. And you can take a quick look at the card back here. We'll give you an up-close shot. And, of course, you got the Cobra Commander there and the same fun facts on the back. That's kind of been consistent with all of them, so nothing new. And now we get our guy out of the plastic here with his little stand. He's looking pretty sharp, I gotta say. I really like how this one turned out. Let's give you a nice close-up here. So you got this helmet that's on there, and that is a separate piece, and that's kind of on top. I think it's molded on, though. I'm not getting it to pop off. You wouldn't need it, though. Its face was mostly a visor. I remember there was one 12-inch figure that came out in the early 90s where you could actually take the his kind of cloak hat off, and you could see half a face underneath, but he still had a bandana on, so you don't really get to see his full face. But you got these gloves on here. They're layered on as well. And then, of course, you get all that great paint applications. And then you have this holster on the side for the knife that is layered on as well. That is not part of the mold. So that's kind of nice. Adds a little depth to the character. Really mimics the look on the card back there, too, I think. So that's great that they added that level of detail. So let's try to get these accessories out of here. It's always kind of tricky when they're very tiny. I want them flying across the room when I try to open it, but at the same time, I want to be able to open it and not struggle with this for 2 minutes while I'm doing a video. So, okay, here we go. So we have our knife and we have our gun. Like I said, the hands are slotted to perfectly fit these in without struggling too much, so you get that gun in there. And I want to pop the knife in the holster here just to see how that functions. It was a little tricky with some of the ones on Snake Eyes last time, just because the angles you had to get were not complementary, but that one slipped in pretty nice, and you could see it there in the holster. And I think it just gives him a more complete look to have that gear on him than to just go with the standard just being a weapon in his hand or something like that. So it's nice that they do these holsters, and they've done them on, we saw it in the first wave of Joe's too. If you want to check out that review, you could go back and look at our other Joe Minimates review. But those also look pretty sharp with the holsters. So that is Cobra Commander. Let's head on over to our intelligence officer, Baroness. All right, well, we got our Baroness here. I'm going to start opening it, but why don't I give you a look at the card back while I'm doing this so you don't lose interest here. Same as the other cards, you got that great vintage artwork on the front with that standard explosion kind of that was on all the card backs and most of the vehicles at the time. And then in the back, you got those fun facts. What I also noticed on these is they have the wave of the good guys as well, so it kind of lets you know everything that's out there with the Joes. So it's just a more wholesome look since we have two waves now. Baroness, a little bit of a simpler figure here, not as many accessories. And that's great that these all come as a pack and not individuals, because maybe as an individual, not as exciting to just have one accessory. But in a pack, of course, you got a whole range of accessories, a little bit more fun in that respect, a little bit more value. And then you get them all in these super special displays. Got this little blaster she comes with, and we'll give you a close-up of her here. And you can check her out sporting her her standard super dark uniform that she has. Of course, you can see those glasses that are on her that are detailed here in a closer shot. And she has that hair. Now that hair does come off, although it's an individual piece here. It's not as clean as the Cobra Commander helmet. And then, of course, you can see her little blaster rifle, laser rifle, or whatever this was. At the time, everything kind of shot lasers. And then she has the you can see the hair, the detailing, and the hair on the back. But that is the look of the Baroness. Essentially, she had a very simplistic look to her, and it really kind of still stood out. But great attention to detail on the face to really sell that on this one as well. And the contours and the lines here on the costume was kind of this armored bodysuit she wore. So I think that works. And then you get these nice gloves that are sort of painted on there as well. But simple character, still pulls off a pretty fearsome look. So that is our Baroness. And now we're going to go to the final rival for Cobra Commander, the arms supplier, Destro. So, and in our set here, we have Destro. Always a fun look to this guy. I'll give you a close-up of the card while I'm opening him. And Destro has some interesting artwork on the front there with that clenched fist. He was a very expressive character in the show. Very backstabbing character, too. Always looking for a way to one-up Cobra Commander. And we have more fun facts about him on the back as well, and about Mars Industries. If you didn't notice, I'm wearing the His Tank shirt today for G.I. Joe, so it's one of his as well from Mars Industries. So we have Destro here coming on out, and he comes with his stand as always. Now I see a holster on his side, which is great. Love the holsters. We'll give you a close-up here. So it's a functional holster again. You can see him here with his blaster in the holster and sporting his attaché case, which is the other accessory, which he usually has some kind of codes or money or something in this attaché case that he's kind of touting around with him. So I think this was a good choice to include that as a second option. It just makes it more fun. It's just kind of standard Destro to have a case with him at all times. So taking a look at the accessories here. So we got our attaché case that opens, which is pretty cool. Nothing in it, but you know, it's nice to have a little bit more functionality. We'll put that in his hand here. And then on the other arm, we're just gonna stick in the blaster, and he has his look like he's ready to go. You'll also see, and you saw it in the close-ups, but he has those wrist rockets on his one side, and those are kind of, they're molded on, they're one piece, but it's nice to have them. They have a little depth there, three-dimensionality, if that's a word. And then some grenades on his other wrist as well. The guy was always kind of kitted out and ready. Looking at his waist, you can see a couple pouches that are on the mold there. So just give him a little bit more dimension to the character. And then not missing that jeweled necklace he has, that's on there too. Just kind of makes him look sharp. And then his neck is actually fun because it's two pieces. So you have the head, this silver Destro head, and then there's a collar on underneath that you probably saw in the close-ups there. Silver collar, similar to his look on the card back in the show as well. So that's kind of nice. And then they have this popped up collar. That was a nice addition to really bring out Destro, because that was a unique thing about him. If you want to see more Destro, we did a review on the Legends in 3 Dimensions Destro, which is a great half-scale mini bust of, well, not mini bust, half-scale bust of Destro that has a real close-up of his head and his necklace and everything. So if you want to get a little bit more in depth on Destro, check out that video as well. But this is our look at Destro here. It's pretty sharp. If I had to pick my favorite out of the bunch here, it's going to be Destro. I just love all this additional detail they put on him and all these additional little touches and accessories. I mean, second's going to be Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow's great. It comes with a ton of accessories, and he's a ninja. I mean, you gotta love a ninja. So you gotta always pick Storm Shadow. But this is our wave here, wave 2. And these guys are kind of complement your heroes in Wave 1, and it's helping you to start build out your G.I. Joe and Cobra set. I mean, there's a lot of G.I. Joe characters, so they could keep doing many waves of these guys. But it's kind of great that you get them in these box sets because A, it helps you build out a set really fast, and B, it gives you a little bit more value, particularly when some aren't going to have multiple accessories. And then you get them on these great little card backs on this little ammo locker kind of design. So it's great to just kind of have them. And with these, I mean, I would love displaying them just as much in the package as I would out of the package, because they just look really awesome on these little mini card backs with the little punch hole where you could just kind of hang them up on your wall, and they would just look amazing. So either way you go with these things, I think they're going to be great. If you're a fan of Minimates or you're a fan of Joe, you're going to want to pick these guys up. They're looking really good. They're really expanding this line. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll see some vehicles down the road, because these are like perfect to fit in little vehicles. I'd love to see a little HISS tank or something, but we'll see. Right now, this is only the second wave. First wave came out just a few months ago, so we'll see where this line goes. But I expect we'll see more Joes in the future. So that's all for this time. Hope you enjoyed this look at Minimates. Of course, we'll be bringing you more Minimates in the future. But for now, that's all we got. Stay tuned for more exciting stuff we're going to show you from Diamond Select in the next month or so. So keep checking back, like, subscribe, and follow. And we will see you guys next time.